That is the actual sign from Neverland that was over the gates.
Are these all Michael's cars?
These are some of them.
More cars.
More cars.
There's another Rolls Royce.
Yeah, well, there's a few.
5 warehouses, locked away for decades. Almost no one knew what they contained. Then there was a handwritten note from 1979, a message so unsettling that, looking back, it seemed to foreshadow everything that would follow.
What do you have here, Karen?
And this is Michael's handwriting.
And how old was he when he wrote this?
He would have been 21.
A jacket that outlived the era that made it legendary. Michael Jackson didn't just leave behind hit records and unforgettable performances. He left behind an entire hidden world. And what investigators eventually found inside was unlike anything anyone expected. Warehouse of secrets. Some people leave behind memories. Others leave behind mysteries. Death doesn't always end a story. Sometimes it unlocks the chapter no one knew existed. Hidden across 5 massive California warehouses, each covering nearly 20,000 square feet, sat a lifetime that had been carefully packed away from public view. Every aisle held another surprise. The famous sequined glove from the Billie Jean era, reportedly valued at around $80,000, Grammy Awards, vintage arcade machines, a white stretch limousine, and even the original entrance sign from Neverland Ranch, preserved like a relic from another time. There were scooters, boats, priceless antiques, and deeply personal gifts from close friends, including a handcrafted wooden rocking horse from Elizabeth Taylor, a reminder of one of the most meaningful friendships of his life. Yet the most remarkable discovery wasn't the value of the collection. It was the overwhelming scale of it. Experts arrived expecting to calculate prices, but many reportedly left struggling to explain what they had seen. No definitive valuation was ever announced. Not because the items lacked worth, but because some collections become larger than money itself. Certain legacies can't be measured by numbers. They linger long after their owners are gone. Here's our special topic. Some online rumors claim that 17 years after Michael Jackson's death, one of his secret warehouses was opened by the FBI, where investigators allegedly uncovered iconic costumes, gold bars, and valuable antiques. The story quickly spread across social media and sparked intense discussion among fans. However, there is no verified evidence or official source confirming that these claims are true. What do you think? Could there be any truth behind the rumors, or are they simply another internet mystery? Let us know your thoughts in the comments. The Secret Manifesto. Sometimes the most powerful object in a room isn't the most expensive, it's the one carrying someone's future. Hidden among thousands of costumes, collectibles, and priceless memorabilia inside those California warehouses was something far smaller, yet infinitely more unsettling. Archivists reportedly paused when they discovered a single handwritten note, folded, worn with age, and dating back to 1979. It had been written by a 21-year-old Michael Jackson, long before he became the biggest entertainer on Earth. The note outlined an extraordinary vision for his future. It spoke about creating a completely new image, building an unforgettable identity, mastering the entertainment industry, and pursuing perfection with relentless determination. Looking back years later, many of those ambitions appeared astonishingly close to what eventually happened. That was the part many found most remarkable, not the confidence itself, but how closely his written goals seemed to mirror the life he ultimately created. It felt less like wishful thinking and more like a personal blueprint for the future. The Jacket of Legend. Sometimes the most ordinary-looking object carries the greatest story. The warehouses were overflowing with dazzling costumes, awards, rare collectibles, and artifacts that instantly demanded attention. Yet one item repeatedly drew people back, a simple black jacket. There were no diamonds surrounding it, no dramatic display case, and nothing extravagant about its appearance. It was simply a jacket. But it represented an unforgettable turning point. This was the jacket from the Billie Jean era, the moment when Michael Jackson crossed the line between global superstar and cultural phenomenon, transforming into an icon whose influence would reshape popular music forever. Interview 356, 4 o'clock. It had survived decade after decade while everything around it changed, remaining quietly suspended in time like a silent witness that had seen history unfold but never revealed its story. What made the jacket so unforgettable wasn't extravagance, it was its simplicity. Millions remember the moonwalk, the unforgettable songs, and the electric energy that filled every performance. Very few remember the jacket itself. Yet there it remained, quietly carrying the legacy of an entire era while brighter, flashier treasures demanded attention all around it. Sometimes history hides inside the objects people overlook. But those warehouses were only one piece of a much larger mystery. Michael Jackson's garage, his homes, and the forgotten corners of his private world were all waiting to reveal secrets of their own. Chrome in the dark. The greatest legends rarely disappear completely, they simply fade from public view. As the lights inside the garage slowly flickered back to life, Years of silence seemed to break apart at once. Every step echoed through a space that had remained untouched for years, as if time itself had been locked behind those doors. Then, emerging from the shadows, came one extraordinary discovery. A 1985 Rolls-Royce Corniche stood waiting beneath the dim light, its turquoise paint still glowing with remarkable brilliance. It looked less like a forgotten collector's car and more like a vehicle that had been parked only yesterday. Time seemed to have passed around it rather than through it. Inside, the white leather interior remained astonishingly untouched, preserving the elegance and craftsmanship of another era as though the years had simply chosen to leave it alone. Interview 520-524. This was far more than an expensive automobile. It belonged to a period when Michael Jackson's fame had become so immense that his presence could bring entire cities to a standstill. During the Thriller era, worldwide attention had reached an almost unimaginable level, and this car represented more than luxury. It offered privacy, comfort, and a rare chance to move through the world without surrendering every moment to the spotlight. But the Corniche was only the beginning. As the team ventured farther into the dimly lit garage, more hidden silhouettes slowly came into view. One discovery followed another, making it clear that nothing inside this collection had been placed there by accident. Every vehicle seemed to preserve another chapter of Michael's extraordinary life. Legends on wheels. The most remarkable treasures often reveal themselves quietly. Deep inside the stillness of Neverland's garage, where the years seemed frozen in place, another extraordinary vehicle emerged from the darkness. A beautifully preserved 1954 Cadillac Fleetwood stood waiting like a forgotten king from another generation. Its long, elegant body carried the unmistakable presence of classic American luxury, radiating a timeless dignity that had survived long after the era that created it had passed. Interview 611-616. Parked only a few feet away was an immaculate Rolls-Royce Silver Shadow, its graceful design reflecting quiet sophistication rather than extravagant display. These automobiles were never built for roaring crowds or flashing camera lights. Instead, they revealed a side of Michael Jackson that the public rarely saw, a man who admired timeless craftsmanship, lasting beauty, and moments of peace in a life constantly surrounded by noise. Every vehicle seemed to tell part of his story, reflecting a passion for collecting objects that carried meaning rather than simply attracting attention. But the longer the team explored the garage, the more they realized these cars represented something beyond luxury. They had become silent witnesses to dreams, memories, and chapters of a remarkable life that even time had failed to erase. Silence behind glass. Sometimes the loudest stories are hidden behind complete silence. Deep inside the shadowed garage at Neverland, where everything appeared frozen in another era, the team came across another remarkable discovery. A beautifully preserved 1985 Mercedes-Benz 500 SEL rested exactly where it had been left, looking as though it had been parked only a day earlier. This was the car Michael Jackson famously purchased for his mother, Katherine Jackson, making it far more than another valuable collector's vehicle. Equipped with factory-installed bulletproof windows and an exceptionally quiet cabin, it offered security, privacy, and protection during some of the most turbulent years of Michael's life, when legal battles, relentless media attention, and worldwide fame made ordinary moments almost impossible to find. Interview 743-747. While the outside world demanded constant access to Michael Jackson's life, this Mercedes represented something far more valuable: privacy, security, and a rare place beyond the reach of cameras. Later preserved by the Hollywood Star Cars Museum, the vehicle became more than a collector's item. It stood as a lasting reminder of the extraordinary pressures that followed Michael everywhere he went. Built with quiet strength and uncompromising protection, it reflected a man searching for peace in a life that rarely allowed it. Yet the cars inside that garage told an even deeper story. They weren't simply possessions, they were silent companions that remained long after their owner was gone, preserving fragments of dreams that time could never erase. Blueprints of genius. The most extraordinary discoveries are often the ones no one expects. Hidden inside Michael Jackson's private garage, investigators uncovered far more than rare automobiles. Tucked behind an old motorcycle sat several black storage crates marked with the familiar gold MJJ Productions logo. At first glance, they appeared ordinary, but inside they contained something far more remarkable than memorabilia. Carefully preserved within were production blueprints connected to a project titled History 2, The Resurrection Tour. The plans revealed an astonishing level of ambition. Multi-tiered stages, mechanized lifts, immersive lighting systems, and concepts designed to transform entire stadiums into living theatrical experiences filled page after page. Many of the ideas reached beyond what concert technology of the time could realistically achieve, featuring interactive audience elements, moving environments, and performances imagined as complete cinematic worlds rather than traditional live shows. There were no hidden scandals waiting inside those boxes, only relentless creativity captured on paper. What investigators discovered was not simply an abandoned archive, but the unfinished vision of an artist whose imagination never stopped building toward the next impossible performance, even if the audience would never see it. The day Neverland fell. On November 18, 2003, while Michael Jackson was away in Las Vegas, investigators arrived at Neverland Ranch and carried out one of the most extensive and dramatic searches in the property's history. Interview 945-951. Nearly 70 investigators spread across Neverland Ranch, moving methodically through bedrooms, offices, storage rooms, and private workspaces. Cabinets were opened, boxes cataloged, computers seized, recordings collected, and personal documents examined. The scale of the operation stunned fans around the world and marked one of the most dramatic moments in Michael Jackson's life. Yet throughout the investigation, Michael publicly maintained his innocence. As the search continued, attention shifted toward the estate's most private areas. Some sections were secured behind locked doors and sophisticated security systems, leading investigators to bring in a locksmith to gain access to restricted spaces, including rooms connected to the master suite. For hours, Neverland was transformed from a place associated with imagination into an active law enforcement scene. News helicopters circled overhead while television cameras documented every development. The operation immediately divided public opinion. Critics argued the search was excessive, while authorities maintained it was necessary. When the investigation concluded, however, prosecutors did not present physical evidence from the search that established the criminal allegations being investigated. The public debate continued, but the events inside Neverland became one of the defining chapters in the story surrounding Michael Jackson. Behind locked doors, the greatest curiosity centered on the rooms few people had ever seen. While much of the search unfolded across the estate, a specialized team concentrated on the mansion's most restricted areas. Access required more than ordinary keys, and locksmiths were called in to unlock sections connected to the master bedroom. Inside, investigators documented personal belongings, computers, electronic devices, and storage areas before removing selected items for detailed examination. Those private rooms quickly fueled public speculation. Reinforced storage spaces and secured rooms gave rise to stories about hidden vaults and long-buried secrets as media coverage intensified. Yet when investigators completed their review, the reality proved far less sensational than many headlines suggested. Reports indicated the secured spaces primarily contained valuables, personal collections, and items protected for privacy and security. For supporters, they reflected the precautions expected of one of the world's most recognizable entertainers. Others interpreted them differently. Regardless of public opinion, the searches of those restricted areas did not produce illegal evidence that resolved the controversy, leaving speculation to continue long after the investigation ended. The library controversy. Among the discoveries during the 2003 search was Michael Jackson's extensive personal library. Thousands of books line the shelves, covering subjects ranging from art, photography, architecture, history, culture, and rare publications collected over many years. At first glance, it appeared to reflect the interests of someone deeply fascinated by creativity and visual storytelling. Soon, however, attention shifted towards several art books containing classical depictions of the human body, which became a major focus of media discussion. The discovery quickly divided public opinion. Critics questioned the presence of those books, while supporters argued they were widely available publications commonly found in museums, universities, and public libraries, featuring classical artwork, anatomy studies, and historical photography. They viewed the collection as part of Michael's lifelong fascination with art and creative inspiration. After reviewing the material gathered during the investigation, authorities did not identify illegal publications, forming the basis of criminal charges from the library itself. Even so, those shelves remained part of the public conversation for years, illustrating how the same collection could be interpreted in dramatically different ways depending on who was looking at it. The final bedroom. Some rooms tell stories no headline ever could. In 2009, following Michael Jackson's death, investigators entered his rented Holmby Hills residence in Los Angeles, expecting the home of one of the world's greatest entertainers. Instead, they encountered a bedroom that had taken on the appearance of a medical treatment space. Oxygen tanks stood beside the bed, for equipment occupied the room, and prescription medications and medical supplies were visible throughout the area. It was a striking contrast to the glamorous image associated with the King of Pop. The scene painted a deeply personal picture of the physical challenges Michael faced during the final months of his life. It stood in sharp contrast to the fantasy of Neverland Ranch, revealing someone struggling with serious health issues while preparing for an ambitious return to the stage. Later legal proceedings concluded that Dr. Conrad Murray had provided negligent medical care that resulted in Michael Jackson's death. The room became one of the most haunting symbols of his final chapter, reflecting extraordinary pressure, declining health, and the tragic circumstances that ended an extraordinary life. The alert system. Long before anyone reached Michael Jackson's private quarters, another layer of security was already in place. Beyond the gates and cameras, the property reportedly included an internal alert system designed to notify occupants whenever someone approached certain restricted areas. During the 2005 trial, filmmaker Larry Nimmer testified about evidence indicating that an alarm system monitored movement toward the master suite, providing advance notice whenever someone entered that part of the estate. Supporters argued the purpose was straightforward. As one of the most recognizable people in the world, Michael faced constant concerns about privacy and security, making protective measures understandable. Former employees also described strict rules governing access to the master bedroom and nearby areas. Critics interpreted the security differently, while supporters viewed it as another example of the extraordinary precautions required by global fame. Whatever interpretation people accepted, the security system became yet another subject of public debate surrounding Neverland Ranch. If you've made it this far, don't forget to hit the like button. It really helps support the channel. Fantasy on display. Some of the most unforgettable discoveries weren't hidden at all, they stood in plain sight. Walking through Neverland Ranch felt less like entering a private estate and more like stepping into a world where imagination had become reality. Everywhere you looked, something extraordinary appeared. At the center of the property was a sprawling 14,000 square foot arcade, packed with rows of classic pinball machines, arcade games, simulators, and attractions that made the space feel more like a private amusement park than a family home. And that was only the beginning. Across the grounds stood towering superhero statues, beautifully restored carousel horses, and beloved Disney characters placed throughout buildings and walkways, blending fantasy into everyday life. Every corner of Neverland reflected Michael Jackson's lifelong desire to create a place where wonder, imagination, and childhood could exist side by side with the pressures of fame. Interview 1717. According to people who knew Michael Jackson personally, many of these displays held deep emotional significance, reflecting the childhood he often said fame had taken away from him. During the investigation, however, authorities documented every item as part of the official search of the estate. Objects that once symbolized imagination suddenly became entries in an evidence log, and the contrast between fantasy and legal scrutiny became impossible to ignore. Yet beyond the investigations and public debate, Neverland Ranch continued to represent something unforgettable, a place where extraordinary ideas, remarkable memories, and lasting mysteries all existed side by side. The train that ruled Neverland. The most convincing fantasies are the ones that almost feel real. Long before the train appeared, the distant sound of its whistle echoed across the property, breaking the silence with a sense of anticipation. Moments later, it slowly emerged, moving through the landscape like a piece of history that had somehow escaped another century. This was far more than a decorative attraction. Michael Jackson had built a fully operational narrow-gauge railroad that traveled throughout Neverland Ranch. At its center was a custom CP Huntington locomotive, manufactured by Chance Rides and carefully designed to resemble a classic steam engine while operating with modern diesel technology, perfectly blending nostalgia with innovation. Interview 1827. The railway curved through peaceful lakes, manicured gardens, and beautifully designed landscapes, making every trip across Neverland Ranch feel like an adventure with no clear ending. But the true centerpiece wasn't the locomotive, it was the station itself. Neverland Valley Station looked as though it had been lifted from another century. Complete with its elegant clock tower, Victorian architecture, and timeless atmosphere, it felt less like a stop along the tracks and more like a destination from a forgotten world. The train was never simply a way to travel across the property. It represented Michael Jackson's extraordinary ability to transform imagination into something people could step inside and experience for themselves. The world he built. Not every place is designed simply to exist. Some are carefully created to make dreams feel real. The moment visitors realized Neverland Ranch was far more than an ordinary estate was the moment they truly understood Michael Jackson's vision. Beyond the rolling hills and open landscapes stood a world unlike almost any private property on Earth, a place where fantasy, architecture, nature, and childhood wonder blended together into something that felt completely unique. Interview 1918. It was an outdoor dreamland carved into the rolling hills of California. Michael Jackson never settled for ordinary landscaping or decorative attractions. Instead, he reshaped the land itself, transforming it into something that rivaled a professional amusement park. A towering Ferris wheel overlooked the property, a beautifully restored carousel turned nearby, and bumper cars, carnival rides, and family attractions filled the grounds with constant energy. Even the theater inside Neverland was designed as a full-scale cinema, giving guests the feeling of stepping into a real movie premiere rather than a private screening. Taken together, every attraction revealed the same vision. Neverland Ranch was never intended to be just another celebrity estate. It was an entire world built around imagination, movement, and wonder, a place where reality constantly gave way to fantasy. And beyond the rides and attractions, even more extraordinary discoveries waited to tell the next chapter of the story. The zoo behind the gates. Some forms of power never demand attention. They quietly surround you until they become impossible to ignore. The next remarkable discovery at Neverland wasn't hidden inside a building or displayed on a stage. It existed behind carefully designed enclosures where the natural world had become part of Michael Jackson's extraordinary vision. A private zoo stretched across large sections of the ranch. Towering giraffes walked above the trees, elephants occupied specially constructed habitats, and brilliantly colored exotic birds filled the sky with movement. Zebras, llamas, and rare animals lived throughout the property, giving visitors the feeling of entering a private wildlife sanctuary rather than a family home. Among all the animals, one resident became the most famous of all Bubbles, the chimpanzee whose close friendship with Michael Jackson became recognized around the world. Yet the animals themselves were only part of the story. The larger picture revealed an artist who looked across empty land and imagined an entire kingdom where nature, childhood, and imagination could exist together. Neverland Christmas. When December arrived, Neverland Ranch transformed once again. Even beneath the warm skies of California, the property became an extraordinary holiday wonderland filled with dazzling lights, towering decorations, and festive displays that seemed to ignore the changing seasons altogether. Visitors entered through gates that opened into what felt like a private Christmas village. Giant trees covered in glowing ornaments illuminated the night, while the main residence became the heart of the celebration, overflowing with music, decorations, and elaborate holiday displays. Outside, the transformation continued. The amusement park sparkled beneath thousands of lights, illuminated walkways guided guests across the property, and even the zoo became part of the celebration, blending wildlife with festive decorations in a scene unlike anywhere else. Through it all, Michael Jackson seemed less like the owner and more like someone happily experiencing the magic alongside every guest who visited. Then, as quickly as it arrived, the season disappeared. January brought silence. The lights came down, the decorations were packed away, and the music faded into memory. But the warehouses had revealed something much greater than costumes, cars, or forgotten collectibles. Behind every crate, every hidden room, every treasured possession,